Check, check, check. Vocals looking good. Everything looking good here. All right. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you're having a great 4th of July America Day weekend. Or if you don't celebrate it, no big deal. Hopefully you all had a fantastic weekend. We're going to take a look over at the charts and prep for the week, as we always do. And let's go ahead and begin. So we're going to hop over to the charts and take a look at what might transpire this week. So LP trades, good evening. Good to see you. Hopefully everyone can, hopefully Mike's good and everything. Seems like the levels might be a little bit lower, but I'm trying not to blow out. I'll be able to move this a little bit closer to see if I can get some better sound here. But yeah, we'll try there. It's going into the yellow now, so okay, cool. So we've got a couple of things here this week. Monday, I think Monday is going to be red herring, whatever direction it goes. I think it's just going to consolidate. We had an insanely big range week last week. So I think it went from new week opening gap was around 19,975 and it ended at around let's call it 20,000 and it ended at 20,600. So that's a large move. So we're going to see what happens this week, but we have Chairman Powell testifying on Tuesday. That's going to be an important day. And then Wednesday, you've got Chairman Powell testifying at 10 a.m. again on Wednesday. So these days, we're going to see pretty decent moves on Powell speaking. Overall, I think this week is going to be a scalper's week. I think it's going to be very tough because generally when you see something like this, you either have a continuation of the trend and continue onwards, or you have the beginning of the week being a consolidation. And as we get into Thursday, CPI, of course, is going to be a major factor in terms of determining what direction and what liquidity we end up finding. And of course, PPI on Friday is going to be a key factor as well. So I think that this week we're going to end up seeing Thursday take out any relative equal highs, relative equal lows that we create this week. And then we're going to probably end up continuing higher the rest of this week. We're going to take a look at a couple of things, though. We're going to take a look over at dollar index. It's been a while since we've done this. So let me see if I can scrunch this down a bit so I can pull it in. Okay, so let me move this out of the way. Geronimo, can you please, in few words, explain FVG? I think that you could probably get a better explanation from the many videos that ICT's put in, but in general, you want to look for 3 up-close candles that are in a premium or discount, depending, or I guess discount, and then 3 down-close candles in a premium. That's probably the easiest and simplest way to think about it. Ain't no LP trades, ain't no way this week is a good week to have a bias. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, look at what dollar is doing. So I'm going to take you over to the monthly and quarterly chart. So this is what dollar has been doing on a quarterly chart. You can kind of see these long-term highs. They've not made a higher high, so there's no reason to think that dollar is going to inherently bust open and start like going to the moon. In fact, this 3 months saw a very, very key rejection off of this bearish order block up here, and it did not go up to fill in the rest of this. It just stopped right at that bearish order block and rejected from there. And we've seen some intermediate term highs continue higher, and we've seen some intermediate term lows continue higher as well. Even this one and this one. So on the quarterly, everything's still rising. So I'm hesitant to say that dollar is going to drop here, but when we take a look at this from a quarterly perspective, we ran up and now we're heading back down at the beginning of this quarter in July. So if we take a look at the monthly chart, same thing, right? Just a smaller time frame. We have, like, you could kind of treat these as market maker buy models, but I when we see these fail like that, generally I'm looking at these from a monthly perspective, and I'm seeing this fail, and it's supporting here still. So I'm expecting continued accumulation in this area until we get a defined event that takes us either to these highs or drops us well below these lows. Now, when we take a look at the weekly, so right now the monthly still question mark on what's going to happen here. We see that we've closed above this fair value gap within this dealing range here, and we're starting to see us accumulate here and fail to head up and get a higher high. Not saying it can't do that, but I think it's gonna end up aiming for this sell side liquidity here. These relative equal lows are very juicy. They're looking like they want to get taken. And if we go down to the weekly chart, we see that it's a little easier to see that the highs have made lower highs, intermediate term high, kind of like higher high, lower high here. So we've made an uncertain set of highs, but lower in general from this point. And we've started to creep up higher and higher and higher here from an intermediate term low perspective. And this also being an potential intermediate term low. We see that there's sell side here, relative equal lows. I imagine we're going to run for that. This would also make sense because we would have traded up through this monthly fair value gap, and we continue to trade lower. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at dollar lower to aim for these relative equal lows at least. So if I take this, move it out over time, I think that this is where we're going to go on the dollar. And then if we go down to the daily chart, you can see everything a little bit clearer. We reached the bottom of this volume imbalance, but we weren't able to go any further. So what does that mean? That means that we were unable to reach this higher high. We were unable to breach this here. So, and we saw displacement lower, and we're probably gonna, I'm looking to see if we see displacement lower this week to continue these daily candles, at least to this rejection block, and then potentially to this tail midpoint and this below these relative equal lows, aiming for these relative equal lows. I think this is the more obvious liquidity for dollar to take. And if it does take this one, we need to see if it blows through and then comes back, mitigates, and then heads lower towards this one here. Okay. Let's see. LP trades. Toronto fair value gap occurs when the market moves so quickly that it leaves behind a gap between the high of one candle and the low of the next candle without any trading occurring in between. Yes, correct. Correct. Absolutely. So thank you for that, LP trades. So this is dollar. So you know my bias on dollar. Dollar lower is generally going to lead to indexes higher. So if we take a look at NASDAQ or micro NASDAQ in this case, let me do one thing and let me see if I can bring over one of the other larger screens here. And then all I'll do is maximize this here so we can see more. So what does this mean on the weekly chart here? Obviously, you can see micro NASDAQ has had a huge week. Generally, you would want to see the next week kind of continue or have a consolidation. So whenever you have really, really big weeks, you can kind of see there's smaller big weeks when you have those. When you are breaching tops and you have that, oftentimes you'll have continuation and then accumulation on the weekly chart. So right now we've had movement lower and then continuation higher. So we have short-term highs here. This is an intermediate term high. This is no longer an intermediate term high. So we can't consider this to be an intermediate term high. We can't consider this to be an intermediate term low. There's short-term lows and short-term highs here. But we can consider these still to be intermediate. So we don't know exactly what's happening here, but there's a good chance that there's going to form a higher intermediate term high here. And we'll see. We'll have to see if we form an intermediate term low. So structure still states that we are going higher, and dollar indicates that we are going higher. So what could happen this week? Let's zoom in. down close candle, sell side. We have a dynamic buy side imbalance here, which is formed by the unfinished week of July, the 28th week of July. So I think that we are going to end up reaching down into this slightly. I'd like to see this next week turn into a big green candle as well, and then leave this fair value gap open. But chances are when Powell speaks, we might head up, and then maybe during CPI we head back down to fill in this gap, and then PPI we head back up or something like that. Unless the market's trying to turn around, which in that case I would expect us to just completely engulf this candle if that was the case. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that 20, what's the high of this? 2273. I like that as a first target, and then 2128, and then of course the opening 2010 essentially. So those are the weekly levels that I would expect to see. We definitely don't see, we see that down close candles are supporting price higher, so I wouldn't want to see it go too much lower than the consequent encroachment, or sorry, the mean threshold, or yeah, consequent encroachment of the wick. Mean threshold of this down close candle, which we can consider potentially as an order block, but the problem is it's in a premium, so you can't really consider it an order block. It's just a down close candle that's in a premium that we expect to support price and continue to support price until it does not. Okay, so my bias is bullish still. I can see that we are still strengthening in that direction. The dollar, or sorry, the daily chart, we continue to head higher. There's a daily down close candle as well. It mitigated off of this mitigation block here, and because we see that type of mitigation, we expect price to potentially continue. I'm expecting this week to either have a very low tail, and for us to expand higher. Depending on what Jerome Powell says, though, you know, we'll have to see what he says. So that's what I'm expecting for the week. From a weekly perspective, I expect to go a little bit lower. I expect to create a fair value gap with this candle, with this candle's body. And I do not expect this to trade all the way down and fill in this. I expect for it to leave a little bit and to trade higher, at least in the first portion of the week. If we see it trade much lower and we see it sell off, that's an indication that we might have reached our summit here, at least for the short term. We have this fair value gap remaining beneath us, and we have that's an imbalance down here as well. So there's definitely imbalances further down for us to end up trying for. Now there's also imbalances down here we haven't filled yet, but again, we don't know if they're gonna even come back down here, at least not yet, right? So that's it there. LP trades, what's the indicator you use to see the daily chart? I don't think I have an indicator for that. Can you, LP trades, can you rephrase that question? I might be misunderstanding you. What's the indicator you use to see the daily chart? So I use so the daily chart, in terms of, I have to use the minutes. I use 1440 minutes because that's I mean, you can use the 1 day chart too. I just like the way that the 1440 minute chart looks better to me on TradingView. Let me see. What were you talking about here? Oh, okay. So I just use the daily chart 1 day. You can use the 24-hour one as well. You'll have smoother candle movement there. You saw the dollar. Oh, I see what you mean. This thing over here. I think that is this ICT HTF candles by Fady. I think. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, looks like it's that one. So you can check that out. It gives you the higher time frame weekly chart there on the same chart is the daily, and even on lower time frames, it gives you that as well. So you can see like on the 4 hour, you can see both the daily and weekly chart. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. I don't use it terribly often because I don't use TradingView as much, but it is helpful when I'm on mobile. Cool. So that's where we're thinking from a weekly perspective. It doesn't really make sense for us to go down to much lower time frames than weekly, daily, because we don't know what's going to happen. We just want to look for the weekly expansion. Where will price likely weekly expand? So if we take a look at what's happened so far, where's our new week opening gap? 16. So right here, we see we closed here and we opened here. So it's a really, really small, very small new week opening gap. See if I can copy one of these, bring it up here. So very, very, very small new week opening gap. Okay, so we have that on our charts. We see that we've traded up, and then we've traded. Let me see. Go to the 1 minute charts. Might be easier to see, or maybe the 5 minute chart. So we can see that we traded up first on our fair value. We see our fair value gap here. We're gonna move that over here. Or sorry, our new week opening gap, and we've traded. Now we've traded down. There were previous sell side imbalances that we traded up to, and we rejected from there. We created another one, we traded up to it, rejected, traded up to it again, rejected, and we're now at new week opening gap. We traded up to this new fair value gap again, and we rejected, right? So I am expecting prices to head lower for the time being in order to head higher later. So I am thinking that we are likely to head down. Oh, I don't know if there's any. Let's see if there's any targets yet. There's not a lot of targets except for like well below this, but I would be surprised if it got down below here. There's no true imbalances on the 15-minute except for down here. So I would like to see what happens at that fair value gap. It is in a premium, but there's no other fair value down here that hasn't been closed in yet. We take a look at the hourly chart, same difference. The only fair value is roughly around here. So if we head down here, institutional order flow entry drill, we could potentially head higher from there. Same on the 4-hour chart, right? Imbalance here, no imbalance here. Very, very small imbalance here on the 4-hour chart, but no imbalances on the way through here. So we see that we traded down to this discount, bullish order block, and then we traded higher for the rest of that day. So same concept here. We have fair value gaps open here, but they're inconsequential from an average true range perspective, and we are likely to see us form another fair value gap. LP trades, nice. Okay, that's sick. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. I thought it was interesting. I think it helps a lot on mobile when you can't switch time frames really quickly, right? So there you go. You've got my bias for the week. I hope this helps out a little bit. And let me open the forum for any other questions. There is a new video out, by the way, on the channel. So if you haven't already checked it out, I show you how to go about, where is it? So it's this how-to setup and use and backtest using NinjaTrader playback connection. It's actually something really, really good that I used and I have been using to practice in my entries and getting more comfortable, getting back to comfort with my entries and taking good entries and not bad entries. So I highly recommend you check that out, because if you're using Apex Trader funding to trade, as you know, this link kind of lets you know the proprietary prop firm that I use to trade, which is Apex Trader Funding. It has the best sales that I've ever seen, and relatively like medium tough rules, but I think that definitely beatable rules though. If you're a good trader, a consistent trader, it's definitely worth your while to check it out. But I loved this video because I spent a lot of time playing around with playback, and I was able to really, really hone my entries and look for things that I was missing during the week, and it was the best way to backtest. So definitely check that video out. There's a point in the middle where you want to like fast forward to the point where like, because basically it takes some time for playback to load up all the data. I had way too much data on there, so definitely check that out. And okay, there's a question here. Waleed, which time or day is it safe or logically on ICT to trade? So Waleed, ICT talks about this a lot. It really depends on what session you're trading, right? So in my charts, I'll go to the 15-minute chart. It'll be the easiest to see. So here you see on the 15-minute chart, right? You've got a few time frames here that are really key. So here's Asia session. This is the pre-Asia session, but Asia kill zone is from 8 p.m. till midnight. London kill zone, I think, is from 2. Well, if you're trading Forex, it's 1 o'clock. This should be 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. 2 a.m. Eastern to 5 a.m. Eastern would be the London kill zone. And from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. is where you get the biggest like chunk of a move. Oftentimes after 5 a.m. you'll also get another move too. I've noticed that over time. And then of course you have New York Open, which is from 9:30 a.m. all the way through London close at 12 o'clock. So I would trade from 10 to 11 is probably the easiest time to trade because there's always a silver bullet here. And what do I mean by silver bullet? I mean that there's always some form of a fair value gap, as you can see, that is something that you can trade, something that happens every single day. It might not be on the 15-minute every single day. It might be on a 5-minute. It might be on a 1-minute, but it happens every single day, and you can take that trade all day long. I've seen this during back testing, right? It might not be a fair value gap that was formed. It could be one that forms on the way on that lower time frame perspective. So those are like the 3 areas that if you want to eliminate getting chopped out, if you want to eliminate consolidation trading, more often than not those 3 time zones are when the biggest moves are going to happen. So earlier this week, if you look at the red, so keep your eyes on the red, right? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Oops, that's too much. So you can see on Asia, consolidation, Asia, big drop here. Asia, big rise here, right? Asia, giant move, continuation at the end of the week. Asia, giant move as well. Nice start to the rest of that day. But then you get down into these areas and there's some moves in Asia, but the larger moves are during post-London or during London and Asia. Sorry, during London and New York. Okay. Waleed, sorry, but I'm asking about this week because there is much news. So, oh, I see. So when should I look for setups this week if I trade New York session? Yeah, this week is a really tough week. There's a lot of landmines this week. So if we are going to take a look at this weekly setup per se, oftentimes, I think the best times to trade are probably going to be, you want to look for volatility to see if fair value gaps form. And if they match with your bias, then 10 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday are going to give you your largest moves. Now, this particular week, I would be very, very careful. I'm going to be looking at buy-side liquidity to be taken, and then I'm going to expect it to reverse and take sell-side or head back to new week opening gap. At least the first couple of days. Monday, I expect that to happen. I don't think, and you can even see this on price action right now, right? If we go down to a 1-minute time frame, look, we've already traded back down to what? New week opening gap, and we've hugged it multiple times, right? So I would say this week, Waleed, the safest, I mean, this is a pretty bad week because you want to be done trading before the afternoon before CPI. Like if it hits like 2 o'clock, once you get past the 1:01 p.m. bond auction, there's going to be volatility during that bond auction. There always is. And it's sometimes really, really drastic bond auction volatility. But you don't want to be trading any point after this 2:30 p.m. Craft. Just watch it. Maybe there's something that happens towards the end of the day, but leading up to CPI, oftentimes there's going to be a lot of less than ideal shady consolidation, right? Not shady, just consolidation. So CPI, I would say post CPI, you can look to see what major intermediate term highs or lows get taken out, and then form your decision there. So look at what previous CPIs, what has happened. You don't want to trade it itself, but you do want to get an idea of where it is going. Has CPI created some liquidity that PPI could take the next day, or that the afternoon session could take during the afternoon session with a 30-year bond auction? Is there something that gets created during those first like early morning high news impact, high economic impact news? Is there something created there? Then you can trade the rest of the morning session and look for liquidity that gets created during this time, or liquidity, maybe relative equal highs get formed. Maybe there's something that's super far away that is over to the left of our charts that we might run for, and frame all of this in terms of like what do we think the major weekly expansion, what do we think it's going to be? Is it going to be a flat doji this week? Is it going to sell off? I don't know yet, right? And we don't know that until we look at the weekly profile this week. Given that there is big news on CPI Thursday and PPI Friday, I would venture to say that we probably have a high of week or a high or low of week figured out by Thursday, I imagine, because CPI tends to take those out as well. So I'm going to be watching that really closely. You can trade Tuesday, Wednesday, even the morning and afternoon session following CPI. You could trade that as well. Friday, PPI, if you're not done trading by 11 a.m., just, I don't know what to tell you. Like there's nothing that happens after 11 a.m. on Friday. So just be wary on Monday. Just watch price. If there is a trade to be made, then take it. I'm going to be scalping. So just, see if you can see a play form. But this week I am expecting price to consolidate in the beginning of the week until we hit CPI. I think we're going to have a lower high of the week on Thursday. And then Friday can take us like completely, whatever happens the first part of the week, Thursday and Friday can completely take us in the opposite direction. Okay. Okay. Good questions, though. Good questions. Any other questions before I want to keep these relatively short so that they're watchable. People can quickly skim through them, right? So, let me see if there's any other questions in the chat. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this week I'm going to be trading, but I'm going to be testing out a couple of things, right? So I had another, I have been really going quite slow because I went into drawdown. I'm still in drawdown, so it's going to take a while to make my way out of this one because of how rusty my trading has been. But with practice, I think this week's going to be a lot better. I have 3 more 250K evaluations I want to try out. I have a Trade of 8 evaluation on mobile that I want to try out as well. So I'm going to be trading hopefully by mobile. during some of the daytime sessions if I can. If I have too many meetings, so be it. I can't monitor the trade, but I can at least manage the trade on mobile Tradeovate a little bit easier, I found. So I tested that out, had a nice 765 day on the day on Friday, and I am going to see if I can meet that 53,000 mark in maybe a week or two, and pass that Tradeovate 50K and have a mobile performance account to play with as well. So we'll see how that works. But yep. So branching out, checking out a couple of different things. I'll let you know how the Tradeovate works. I know a lot of friends have used Tradeovate as well, so I'm excited to continue to play with it. I just wish that they had the full integration like with TradingView, but it is what it is. Eventually, I'll make an AMP futures account and trade micros there instead. So, okay. So I think that's it. We're gonna wrap up there for this week. You know where my bias is. If you came in late, don't worry about it. You can rewatch it. But I think that's gonna be it for this week. And yeah, safe trading this week. It's going to be a wild week. Watch out for Jerome Powell. JPow saying something. Algos pick him up immediately. If he says something bad, they'll pick it up really easily. Be very careful during Jerome Powell speaking, okay? You know it's a week that we've had a huge range week. You know that it's a week that we can consolidate in the first part of the week heavily. So watch. I would highly recommend you take your 4-hour chart and 15-minute chart. Look for intermediate term highs there. Map these out. These relative equal highs up here, these are going to get taken out at some point. For sure. Guarantee you these are going to get taken out. I don't know when, but I like these. And then we'll probably end up filling in this fair value gap as well. So on the 15-minute chart, I imagine we'll hop down here to take that out as well. So what happens after that is really yet to be determined. If we have a really big displacement candle, then there's a good shot that we end up heading towards the previous new week opening gap down here. Okay. There's a lot of liquidity waiting below us, but these relative equal lows, I wouldn't be surprised if CPI or PPI ends up taking those out. All right, folks. Well, I think that's it for today. I hope this was insightful. And again, thanks for coming on. Great work studying, great work preparing for the day and week ahead. It's going to be a tough week. I'd say be careful on Monday. I'm going to be looking for 10 handles and out on NASDAQ. And then maybe take off 80% of our profit within 10 handles. I'm not looking to really stay in big prolonged moves on Monday. So be careful on Monday. Be careful on Powell speaking on Tuesday and Wednesday. Oftentimes the market will take what he says and just completely reverse on you without time for you to, set a stop loss, set a proper stop loss. So be very careful with those. They can be nice and volatile, but they're a lot more controlled. They control algos a lot more. So have a great evening, everybody, and we'll keep in touch soon. Have a great week trading. Again, I'm not going to stream until I get me out of drawdown. So I will continue to update on chat, and I'll update what levels that I'm looking for, what kind of things that we're eyeballing. But right now, it's tough. I expect more consolidation. I mean, maybe it drops like crazy. I expect that price will head lower in the beginning of the week in order to head higher, right? So disclosure crypto could check a Gary network. I actually don't know what that means, but so probably can't check it if I don't know what that means. All right, so that is it for today. I'm gonna move this screen back where it belongs, and that's gonna be it. So thank you very much, folks. Have a great rest of the evening, and we'll talk soon. Stay safe, get some good sleep. Good luck trading this week. See you on the community.